Not what you were expecting, right? It's my voice, but this guy's lip syncing to it. There's a lot of work in people that go into making a pop star nowadays, and sometimes singers don't even sing their own songs. So let's break it down. Also, who is this guy? Hello, my name is Rumi, and welcome to Pop Theory, the series where we dive into the secrets of modern pop music. In this episode, we're gonna talk about how singers get famous, and to understand that, we need to understand the music industry, the machine behind everything. How do you guys find new music?
Club, I go on Spotify.
Do you guys ever listen to the radio?
I actually do.
I do.
Only in the car.
I generally find music by accident. I type in random words, A, B, C, and that's how I find new music.
To become a famous singer, you need to make music that's likely to be enjoyed by a huge audience and then get it in front of that audience. That sounds easy enough, right? Well, not quite. How singers get famous has changed a bit over time. In the 20s and 30s, people mainly listened to music over radio. People tended to listen to the same music at the same time. So getting on the radio was this huge thing for an artist back then. The expression making it actually comes from this golden age of radio, where making it is short for making it on the radio. As time went on, this huge audience started to splinter into smaller niche audiences. With the arrival of more and more radio channels, then broadcast TV, and now the internet, people have more choice than ever. But the basic idea of pop music remains. It's the music that can attract the most listeners, the popular music. Do you think you need to be a good singer to be famous?
Obviously not.
Probably needs to have a good face.
It's about personality, marketing.
Sex tapes.
A modern team behind a pop artist can look something like this. The label, the company that provides funds for everything in exchange for the lion's share of the profits. The writers, producers, and A&Rs who make sure that the artist has songs that are marketable to a mass audience. The marketing team that chooses how to spend the marketing budget and also creates and modifies the artist's image. The management that is well connected and makes sure to put you in the right places with the right people. Now, you might say that that sounds really expensive, and it is really expensive. According to IFPI, breaking an artist in a new market can cost anywhere between $500,000 and $2 million. Furthermore, according to one study, 98% of all major label releases fail. So that's a basic team behind a standard pop artist. But one thing you don't often hear about is the relationships between major labels and mainstream radio stations. When it comes to discovering new music, surprisingly, radio is still the most influential medium. One study found that 48% of all music listeners find most new music from radio. In the US, 245 million people listen to the radio at least once a week. That's 91% of all US citizens over the age of 12. Therefore, getting on the radio is probably the most important thing of all for pop artists. And this is where the major labels truly shine or stink, depending on your perspective. Money and connections play a huge role in getting music steadily on the radio. At the center of this process are so-called independent promoters. The labels pay promoters for various promotions like giveaways and bumper stickers. At the same time, these independent promoters are also paid by the radio stations to advise them on what songs to play. So without any money actually exchanging hands between major labels and radio stations, they still sort of have paid the radio stations to play the songs. Some people might argue that this setup is a bit immoral, but at the same time, you can't argue that it's pretty good business. So what happens if an independent artist decides to pay the independent promoters to get their song on the radio? Well, basic business principles makes this very hard. While an independent musician may be able to find the money in some way to pay the promoters, the record labels do this every week. It just makes more sense for the promoters to prioritize the major labels because they know that the major labels will be supplying the money over a long period of time. Love it or hate it, but mainstream radio is sort of a pay-to-play scenario based on ongoing relationships. Since radio is the main source of new music discovery, this is a huge strength for major record labels. So for independent musicians, maybe it is a smart choice to look at a major label deal, even in this day and age with social media and direct connection to listeners. Back in the day, aspiring singers would record a so-called demo, one song or collection of songs that hopefully would end up in the hands of someone influential in the music business. Nowadays, many artists don't get any recognition from labels until they've already cultivated a fan base. Still, record labels hire tastemakers whose job it is to find new and emerging talent. They do this by listening to unsigned music, looking at live shows, and searching through the internet. These people are called A&Rs, short for artist and repertoire. A&Rs are basically the gatekeepers of major labels. labels. And this process, how artists are found and how they're nurtured, doesn't only influence who makes it, but also how the music sounds. Once an A&R signs an artist, the artist will often be introduced to a team of songwriters, producers, and collaborators. Artists are paired up with top producers who match them with ready-made beats, lyrics, and hooks. This contributes to what some would call the factory method of mass-produced pop. It's not uncommon for a song to be passed on from artist to artist. If a song doesn't work for one person, it doesn't mean that it won't work for the next. This contributes to a more uniform sound in pop music. If you want to learn more about that, you can watch my video, All Pop Songs Sound the Same. So that's how some of the most famous artists today got to where they are. But there's many different ways of getting into the business, and maybe you can create your own. That's so lame.